So obviously the topic that we are gathered here today to talk about and what Ken is going to share with everyone is cybersecurity and how to protect small businesses. So, but just a little bit about the center that Katie, myself, and Fen work at. So we are the Cleveland State University Small Business Development Center, and we are here to provide help to the businesses of Ohio, Northeast Ohio specifically. And you could be, opening up a barber shop. You could be opening up, a restaurant or a grocery store, or you might be a manufacturer. You might have, you might be a supplier in aerospace or anywhere in between. If you're a small to medium-sized company or you're looking to become a small to medium-sized, our services are here for you. So our services are always free and confidential, and we're here to be your advocates to help you navigate the system for all the different assistance programs, for the counseling that we provide, whether it's for finances, accounting, strategy, planning, hiring, HR, all the like. Katie works at the center out of the Lee Road Library in Cleveland Heights. Normally, now of course during the pandemic, she's mostly working out of her house. As am I. The Export Assistance Office, part of the Small Business Development Center where Fen and I work, we're based out of the downtown Cleveland campus at Cleveland State University. So, like I said before, our services are free and confidential. Some of you joining this call may already be registered businesses with the Ohio Small Business Development Center. If you're not and you're interested in using our services, you do have to be a registered member, but there's no charge to be registered. And it's just that the state would like to keep track of and know what businesses are using our services. And a little bit about the Ohio Small Business Development Centers. We are a state-funded agency. There are over 30 small business development centers located in Ohio. There's 3 altogether in Cuyahoga County. We also have our partners at the Urban League and the Hispanic Business Center. And there's also nearby in Lorain at Lorain Community College and Lake County at Lakeland. And to sign up for our services, it would enable you to have access theoretically to any and all of these centers to tap into any of the very knowledgeable business consultants that we have throughout the state. All right, this is kind of my obligatory language here. As we've perhaps mentioned in some of our publications leading up to this, this webinar today is funded through funding through the CARES Act grant that came from the Ohio Small Business Development Centers. And we will be discussing this a little bit further, but one of the underlying purposes of today's webinar is to introduce you to Ken. Ken is one of just a number of consultants that our center has engaged, and we are using this series of webinars to advertise their services because we've received funding through the CARES Act to be able to provide their services to you. And we're inviting you to contact us if you'd like to learn more about how you can potentially use Ken's services and that of his company, or for that matter, any of the other businesses that we're going to be advertising over the course of the next month and beyond. And to that point, this is the first, as Katie mentioned, the first webinar in the series of webinars that we're going to be featuring from now until the end of September, highlighting all the various consultants that we've lined up through this CARES Act funding. And just to kind of briefly explain how this works, we have each one of these consultants has been contracted with us. We will provide for a sort of a quota of how many hours that they can provide, and the CSU Small Business Development Center will pay for their services. And we can explain a little bit more if you're interested, but we have a certain amount of funding that will provide for at least a viable amount of work that each one of these consultants can do for your company. And this is what we're really hoping that you reach out to us so that you can engage their services. For more information or to register for any of those upcoming webinars, you could go to the CSUSBDC.com website. You could find us at the Cleveland State University College of Business page. And we will be posting recordings of all the webinars at each of these sites in case you happen to miss any one of those upcoming webinars but would like to view them. So now that takes us to our presenter today, Ken Fanger. Looking at, we've misspelled your name, I'm sorry about that, from On Technology Partners. Ken does a lot of things with his company. He and his associates work for a wide array of technology assistance for businesses of all kinds of types. And one of the reasons why we partnered with Ken's company is because he specializes in helping out many of perhaps the businesses that are on this webinar right now. We know that for the needs many times of small to medium-sized businesses or those who are just starting up can be a little bit different than the larger companies or other institutions that may be out there. So I'm very excited to present to you Ken, who's going to take us through a presentation overviewing a couple of the common problems and issues, challenges that perhaps businesses like yours face. And again, our invitation to you is that if you're interested to learn more or perhaps to partner with him, please let us know after this presentation, and we'll provide the steps on how you can get in contact and be part of this program. So. And once again, I'll stop sharing here, but before I turn it over to Ken, just an additional invitation that if you'd like to add any questions into the chat function, we invite you to do that. Or if you have any questions, you could also raise your hand or just prompt us, and we could call on you so that you can interject your question or comment. Okay, with that, Ken, I guess I'll turn it over to you. So thanks very much, Ken, for agreeing to be part of this program and to leading this presentation today.
No, thank you for having me. And again, if you have questions during this presentation, I much prefer having interactive presentations. I will give you lots of information, but it's more valuable if it's relevant to you. Again, you can put things into the chat. I will try to watch the chat, and I'm sure the team will be watching it as we go. So I want to thank you, everybody, for coming for our SBDC Cybersecurity Assistance. And I'm going to talk about what you're going to face. In fact, if this works, I guess I'll start by telling you who I am. My name's Ken Fanger. I'm the president of On Technology Partners, and I have been doing technology for 30 years. I have worked as a developer. I worked for British Petroleum when British Petroleum used to be here. I've worked for Truck Stops of America. I have done network administration. So I've been in a wide range, and now I do mostly project management. And I have the advantage of working with a lot of small businesses on how to get to compliance. I work with doctors' offices. I work with financial offices, PCI compliance. So I have the advantage of having a lot of those experiences. I worked with Jumpstart and worked on getting their internal security set up. I've worked with Cleveland Power and setting up their security structures. So I've done a lot of jobs from small to large, and I understand the similarities and the differences. And that's one of the things that we kind of try to bring when we talk to people. And I love working with small businesses. I started my company 26 years ago. And honestly, one of the things I realized, I felt like I was starting all alone. When you're first starting, you can feel that. That's what's so wonderful about like the SBDC. They're a great place to give you that view of what's happening and make you not feel alone as you move forward through this process. So I want to start, everybody has two truths and a lie. I decided to reverse this and say this is two lies and a truth. So here are the statements. Your business is in the business to do cybersecurity. You can do this alone. You need a guide to help you. Who thinks which one of these is the truth?
So you need a guide.
You need a guide, yes. Most companies do not exist to do cybersecurity. Obviously ours does. But the rest of yours, you're going to be in it to do chocolate. You're going to be in it to do accounting. You're going to be in it to do some other service. Cybersecurity is just a threat. Similar to why you have health insurance or life insurance or other things. You need to be protected from it so your business can do what it does. And just trying to do it alone leaves you exposed to a lot of dangers. So today we're going to try and cover quite a few things. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to the different hackers that are out there trying to get at your information and kind of talk about why they're doing it and some of the basic steps we'll do to protect you. Then we're going to talk about why do you care about security. It matters depending on your industry. Since we do have a chocolatier in here, being safe with your food products is very important. Not having people steal your valuable recipes, very important. Then we're going to talk about compliance areas. There are compliances that your company has to face depending on what you do. Different things like healthcare have much higher compliances, and that makes a difference on what you should have in place to do what you need to do. We're going to go over some of the terms of cybersecurity to help you understand what it is that's happening. We're going to go over a few of the common attacks, and if we have time, I'll touch on some of the ways you can protect against them. And then we'll talk about the next steps to engage the SBDC and ourselves and take advantage of some of these CARE Act funds to help get you that cybersecurity needs. And then I'll take any questions that you might have. And again, if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to bring them up, and I will always keep trying to, we got one chat. Let's see what the chat says quick, maybe. Sometimes my computer is not as friendly as it should be.
Ken, I think it was just a reply to your question in the survey.
Okay. Okay, so let's start talking about who are the hackers. There are people out there that have a vested interest in going after your information. These people can have from trying to get your money to causing political strife to other things. So we're going to actually talk about 5 different hackers from 5 different parts of the world and look at what they have in common and how they're different. First of all, let's talk about how they're common. A lot of them are younger. They're usually below 30 years old. They come from all types of social economic backgrounds. They can be from middle class, they can be rich, they can be from the poor. There's a lot of different ranges of economic positions that these people come from. And because of the fact that a lot of hacking can be a software as a service, which means that somebody else writes it, puts it together, and you just do a few clicks, hackers can be less skilled than they used to be in the past. They're also in the United States, but also around the world. We've heard about Russian hackers, we've heard about Chinese hackers. They are out there and they are doing things. And I'm actually going to share a story of where we had a Chinese hacker come and attack some of our clients. And they go after you for a wide range of reasons. Sometimes you're collateral damage, sometimes you're the direct target. So the first one I want to talk about is Nadia. She's a Russian hacker. She's about 21 years of age. She comes from the Russian middle class. So she is college educated, she's well educated, and she's very patriotic. She loves her country. And she works for the government, though she may not be directly notified as working for the government. But she sees herself as protecting her homeland. She is there to protect her country. And if you're wondering, US has the same thing. Some of you probably have heard of Snowden. That was his job. His job was to do cyber espionage on foreign countries. So they're out there. They're trying to find information. If you believe what you hear, they're trying to disrupt our election. They're also going to go after and try and do different attacks on small businesses to get to larger clients. These people are highly skilled. They are out there. They've been trained to do these types of attacks. So you want to, with those types of situations, have high security levels. You want to use multiple security standards to keep them from being able to get in because they're highly motivated. So the next one we're going to talk about is an Iranian hacker, Hashem. He's about 26 years old. He comes from a poor background. He maybe have some schooling, but not a lot of schooling. He's very fanatical. He believes in fighting whatever fight he's doing. He may be working for terrorist groups. And his goal is to do damage to the economies of the West, but he's also trying to find money to fund his organization. So he'll do things like ransomware to try and get money out of you. He'll do things like scams and other types of attacks. His goal is to make more money so they can continue to do their terrorist activities. So in that case, you want to make sure that you're training your people, protecting your teams, and again, keeping security from ransomware type of attacks. These tend to also be low skills. They use pre-made hacking tools to do what they're doing, which you can go out and find very easy on the internet. The next one is Kevin. And it's funny because even 30 years ago when I was doing my my computer classes, we had Kevins that I knew. They were out, they would hack at each other. They would write viruses just to write viruses. And then these viruses would kind of get out of control. They weren't even doing it because they needed to. They just wanted to see what they could get away with. So Kevin is 19. They're upper middle class. They don't have to worry about money. This is not a financial thing for them. This is a prove I can do it type of conversation. They're either late high school or in early college in many cases. Their theory is they want to show their friends how great they are. I can break into AT&T. I can cause this damage. I can do these bad things. I can take and show off these people. So they might hack you to give out your emails just to distribute them, not because they care how the outcome goes. Their goal is to prove that they can do it. And they, again, have a high set of skills. They've been doing it for a long time. So again, these people, you want to make sure that you have good standards in place, you're following good protection procedures, and you're using very complex passwords. They have password hacks they use, so that you're doing the best you can to keep your employees safe. So Abiz is a Nigerian hacker. I have to admit, about 8 years ago, I actually fell for well, I didn't, my company did. We had made a mistake. We got a request to buy equipment. We found out it was from a Nigerian company that wasn't a real company. They had used a fake credit card, and we thought we had things in place. We found out that the things we used to certify that they were real, like their address, doesn't work. And we ended up losing about $40,000. So these are unfortunately real attacks that happen to even companies that are trying to look for it, and you just have to make sure you do better. So they tend to be younger. They're recruited very young. They're very poor. They don't necessarily have any schooling. They come up either through these criminal organizations or these gangs, and their objective is to get money. So we've all seen the Nigerian prince scam. That's a real scam, and it still goes out. And there are still people that will click on it and think they're going to get $1 million for transferring $100 million. And it's a shame, but it does keep happening, and that's why they keep doing it. And this is one of those things where training is very important, and there are certain products we can put in to help find people that might click on these links before they click on them. And then again, they don't have a lot of skill. They use tools that are built to make it easy to do this type of hacking. And the last one I want to talk about, we've heard a lot about the Chinese hackers. Bayo, she is a little bit older for this group. She's 27. She is middle class in China. She is highly educated, well-trained, similar to what I talked about with Snowden from our side. She works for the government, and her role is, again, to disrupt the enemies of China. And one of the things I want to tell you about is I had a nonprofit. It's a fairly large nonprofit that we're working with about 5 years ago, and we had put in the standard security settings, but all of a sudden one day we noticed that we were making a lot of requests against Amazon close to November and December. And when we did our research, we found out that they had come through on there's a protocol, it's a way that computers talk, that asks for the time, and they used it to get in, and then they started to attack Amazon, doing denial of service attacks during the holidays. The goal was to shut down Amazon, because their goal was to stop commerce. We were able to trace it back. We found out it was coming out of China, and we put in what is called geofencing, which is a way to make sure that IP addresses or addresses from China are not allowed to talk to you. And so there are ways you can protect against these types of things. Since then, those have become more standard, but you can see they're very aggressive. They're going to go after you as a small business because they can use you to attack large companies. It is easier to get through a small business and attack a large company than to try to attack a large company directly. So before I go, anybody have any questions on some of the hackers that are out there? Okay, so what I want to do is I want to talk about why do you care about security? Why does it matter? And the first thing I always tell people is your reputation and your legal commitment. So you don't want to have a situation, if you're a lawyer and you lose confidential documents, you could be disbarred, you could lose your business. Your reputation is very important. You also have, like I said, the legal concerns. You don't want to be hacked. I mean, look how many people all of a sudden, we remember in 2016, all the emails that got distributed and all of that type of hacking. Your information is your lifeblood. And if you can't keep it safe, you can't be in business. Confidential information. And of course, with this current situation, and I picked a funny Zoom bomb put out there, but I have seen, unfortunately, they can be a lot less than funny. There's been very rude and inappropriate Zoom bombs that have happened. We actually worked with the city of Cleveland to set up their city council meetings to be virtual. And we worked with them to write protocols on how do you let people in? How can you attend it? How do you make sure that you don't have somebody go in there and put very offensive information? There are people that will put very offensive things into meetings, especially some of the school classes and stuff, either nudity, profanity, or racial attacks. So you want to make sure you're protecting your team and your company and your reputation and your revenue by taking steps to protect yourself. And a lot of times that just means making sure you have policies, procedures, and training in place. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about are some of the compliance standards and how they might affect you. And the first one I want to talk about is NIST. Some of you may have heard of NIST, probably a lot of you have not. That's the National Institute of Standards and Technology. The reason I want to bring it up is because when you work with us, we're going to do what's called the NIST framework. It's a set of best practices to help make sure that your company is protected. And the ones we use are designed for small business. There are a whole slew of NIST standards. If you work with the Department of Defense, there's a very stringent NIST standard that we have to work with. So we can work with you, but we'll start with the basic one. We'll start with the NIST framework to help make sure that your company is able to do the things they need to do. We'll start with policies and procedures. Then we'll talk at how you protect yourself. How do you respond when you do get a violation? If somebody does hack you, you want to make sure you tell your customers. And you want a process to do that. We will work with the plan to build that out so that when it does happen, you're not scrambling. Because most of the time we don't have a plan in place. Somebody does hack us, we don't know how to respond. So NIST will toe the standards to do that, and that's what we will use when we work with you. Most of us have heard of HIPAA. The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act has to do with protecting our medical information. All doctors' offices have to comply to it. We've helped lots of doctors' offices get to HIPAA compliance and work through what that meant. And in relation to that is high tech, which is actually the information technology piece of health and security. So we can work and build those standards with you. I put in here NERC and SIPA because we are working with Cleveland Public Power on their power grid control. And this is another organization that puts out security requirements. So you can see there are lots of compliance requirements depending on your industries. And one that many of you probably have to be compliant to and may not even realize it is PCI compliance. This has to do with taking credit cards. I was working with an association a few years back, and they would take credit card numbers through their email. And they had, when we did a security risk audit, they had over $4 million in credit card information just stored in emails that were not encrypted, not protected. And so we ended up cleaning all that up and making sure that they would not be liable if there was a breach. So if you take credit cards, there's conversations you want to look at to make sure that you're PCI compliant. Any questions on compliance before I move on? Okay, now this is a big one out of Europe. I don't know if all of you know, it's a General Data Protection Regulations. One of the big things that this one, and it's coming into the United States, it's usually going state by state, but it basically says that if you have somebody's information, they have the right to ask you to remove it. And then you have to prove that you have removed it. So it's a very stringent standard. If you think about it, think about Facebook and all that information Facebook has on you. In Europe, if you have a Facebook account and you tell Facebook you want it gone, they have to certify that, hey, you've gotten rid of everything you've collected on them. So this is a very stringent privacy protection conversation. And I'm actually going to share a story that I kind of liked related to just how stringent this is. So there's a grandma in Holland that had to remove her grandchild's pictures from Facebook because the parent did not want the child to be displayed. The grandmother was really proud of her child. She wanted to show everybody what she was doing with her grandchild. And the mother had said no. And since the mother is the guardian, she had to have everything removed. They ended up suing the grandmother over this, which is kind of funny, but Facebook had to remove all of it. So any picture of that grandchild on her site had to be removed. So there are very strict rules that are coming down on cybersecurity. And if you're collecting information, which we all do in a business, you want to be able to make sure you know how you have to keep that safe, secure, and removable if it's requested. Okay. So let's kind of talk about some of the terms that are out there that you would want to know when talking about cybersecurity. The first thing that I talk about with people is encryption. So what that means is encryption is kind of messing up words so that you can't read them. If you remember when you were young, you would take maybe the alphabet and you'd shift over 4 letters and then you'd write things with the shift. Those would be encrypted. Now, obviously, that's a very simple encryption. With modern encryption, it becomes very hard to kind of break that. But it's important because if you're sending emails with confidential information, you want to make sure that it's encrypted, because email by default is what's called open text or plain text, which means I can sit on the internet and grab your email as you send it, and then I can read it. So if you're sending somebody, yes, your cancer appointment is on Tuesday, that would be a HIPAA violation if it's sent over clear text email, because you may not want anybody to know that you have a cancer appointment. Where this can become big is, in the case of a medical like I showed, let's say that you are going to see if you have AIDS, and somebody grabs that email and shares it. Well, that could cause you to have problems at your job. That could cause people to be afraid to be around you. That could cause a lot of different complications. You want to make sure when you're working with your customers, you have information encrypted. And so there's encryption while it's being transmitted, which is encryption in motion, and there's what's called encryption at rest. So if you have a file on your computer, and let's say you're a lawyer, and that is a contract, or if you're an IP lawyer, intellectual property lawyer, you might have a blueprint for the greatest thing coming up. Maybe it's the greatest chocolate. If that lawyer loses that, that lawyer could be in a lot of trouble. But if it's encrypted on their computer, so if somebody steals their computer, you might remember the Ohio Department had lost, I think it was 250,000 Social Security numbers. If that would have been an encrypted laptop, they would still be safe, even though they lost the laptop. So you want to use encryption to help protect your information wherever it sits. The next thing that you want to think about is what's called data loss prevention. And this has to do with, a lot of us talk about cybercrime and cybersecurity, but if you lose your customer list because your building burned down and you only had that copy, that would have the same effect on your company as somebody stealing it. So when you think of data loss prevention, what it's saying is there's lots of reasons you can lose information. You have to look at what you want to protect, how you want to protect it, and all the ways you can lose it. Not just we got hacked, we got ransomware, but fire, physical loss, those types of conversations. So data loss prevention is a holistic look at all of your information that makes your company run. The next thing that is becoming very common is what's called multi-factor authentication. Most of you probably have your bank accounts that you log into, and every time you log into your bank account, you'll get a text on your phone that says, put in this number. That means two-factor and multi-factor authentication means you need 2 ways to prove you are who you say you are. Unfortunately, even with complex passwords, and most of us don't use complex passwords, it can still get hacked over time. You could go to a site that grabs it when you type it in. They put what's called a front face site on it. So having multi-factor authentication helps protect you, because even if they get your password, they still need to have your phone to get in. So the more secure you need to be, the more factors you can put in there. You can have biometrics, which is using your fingers. I think that's actually the next thing on the list. So biometrics, like I have my tablet, sees my face, and that's how it gets me in. I use my fingerprint on my laptop to get in. So biometrics is another way to help secure your systems as you keep moving forward, so you don't have to try to remember all of the passwords. I think I have over 4,000 passwords that I have to remember. I actually use LastPass to do that because I can't remember them all. And the danger I don't want to get into is using the same password for every single one of my clients, because that means that if you break one, you break them all. The last thing I want to talk about is journaling, archiving, and e-discovery. So if you do use email, There's a lot of times, and I'm not a lawyer, but you could be, we worked with a pharmaceutical company a few years back in regards to a case where a person was charging that there was sexual harassment. We had to pull all of the email back. You could not have deleted it. People had deleted emails. We had it archived and journaled. We were able to recover everything and move forward with the case. So when you do things in email, you want to make sure if you are going to delete email, have a policy. You do not want to go to court and justify why you only deleted last week. So if you delete after a year, make sure you do that. Make sure you follow the policies. So journaling and archiving means that you keep them for long periods of time. E-discovery means that you're in a lawsuit and they want to pull the information. And unfortunately, from what I've seen and the cases we've done, the courts always go against you if you don't have a policy related to your emails and your e-discovery conversations. So let's talk about some of the common attacks. We all know about phishing attacks. I talked about the Nigerian prince. So I actually had fallen prey a few years back to an Amazon gift card. I wasn't thinking. I saw, oh, $5 from Amazon. I clicked on it and I realized really quick that was a bad choice. Fortunately, my web filter caught that I was going to a bad place, shut me down, and nothing bad happened. But you get those emails constantly. You can do things to help clear those out, your spam filters, other solutions. But you also want to take some time and talk with your team to make sure they know, don't click on links that you didn't ask for. Don't do things. If you get a link from Facebook, I always suggest go into Facebook right through your browser. It'll still be there when you go in, so you don't have to click on links in your email. The next one that is very prevalent is ransomware. And these can be very bad. You may have heard about Coventry Schools. I think that was last year. They had a ransomware attack. The entire school was wiped out. They were down for 4 days as they had to rebuild every computer. There was a ransomware attack against the city of Cleveland and the airport. So these can be very bad. They can encrypt your information. They can wipe out everything. We had a church that reached out to us because they had gotten a ransomware. It can be sometimes you cannot get the information back. And if you talk to the FBI, they tell you to never pay the ransom. That's the first thing they'll tell you. But if you do pay the ransom, these are criminal organizations. You have a 1 in 3 chance that they still won't give you the key to open up your information. And if you do pay the ransom, think of it from a business standpoint. If you're a paying customer, more people are going to want to get you to pay them. So you actually can end up on a blacklist where they're going to target you directly once you start to pay. So you be very careful when you pay. If you do get a ransomware attack, you want to reach out to the FBI, you want to get in contact with them. But we can put in solutions that can help protect so that even if you get ransomware, we can recover. We had another client that had gotten ransomware on their server. It took us 15 minutes to restore everything. They lost nothing. They paid no ransoms. It's a very good way to go and protect yourselves, because if you do get a ransomware, the only choice you have is to pay. You're really at the mercy of the enemy, and you don't want to be there. This has become much more common. This has been around for a while. It's these support scams. So all of a sudden on your computer, something pops up and says, Microsoft says you have a virus. You need to call this number right now. You call the number, and while you're on the phone, they say, we need to log in. They send you a link. You click on it, and then they start to install all types of terrible software. I actually had a person call me, and they were in the middle of one of these people attacking them. And I got on, I remoted down to their computer. I started to ask them a few questions just to see how they'd respond. I, of course, then kicked them out and shut down everything they were running. But if you do bring up one of these spams, they'll go after your password programs. They'll go after your bank accounts. Their goal is to get you on the phone and then steal everything they can from you. So you want to make sure if it pops up and says, don't take that. Anything that feels like a panic, you want to take a minute and breathe. You want to reset yourself and think, okay, is this really important? Or are they trying to make me scared? If they're trying to make you scared, more than likely, it's not really an issue. It's them attacking you. And never call a number that just pops up on your screen if you didn't ask for it. And then email hijacking. This is one that, again, has been on the rise. This is where you'll have somebody send you an email. And if you're a company, and I've had a few companies that have done this, so what they'll do is they'll do what's called spoofing, or looking like it's coming from somebody else. They'll send an email, and the email will say, "Hi there, I'm responding to this invoice. I need you to pay it. Here's the bank account routing number. Please remit the payment." I had a company that did that for $40,000. And so we put in a policy. It's a simple policy to put in. Pick a threshold that you can accept. If somebody sends an email, give them a call. We do it for any calls where we need a payment made or anything. We'll call the company and just confirm it. Because for $40,000, that person's extra time is worth it. That'd be a heck of a well-paid employee if 5 minutes was worth $40,000. So if you get an email hijacking, you want to make sure, check what bank account you're sending. Make sure you have a standard where you pay your vendors to type of conversation, because it's very hard to get that money back once it's been sent. Okay, let's talk about some of the next steps that you might want to do if you want to engage the SBDC and ourselves. So the first thing is just let us know. Make sure that you get registered with the SBDC. You can reach out. I'll give you a contact information at the end of this. But we'll get you set up. We'll get you connected to the SBDC. We'll make sure that you're all configured properly so that we can move forward. And then we'll schedule a cyber review. We'll talk about your industry. We'll talk about any type of compliance needs you have, where you are. A 2-person company is very different than a 50-person company. And then we'll work on determining any compliance. We'll work on making sure what your needs are, because security is dependent on you. It has to be unique to you, built off of standards, but in a way that helps your company. And then what we'll do is we'll work on building a plan. We'll work on building the implementation plan based off of those NIST standards that we talked about, so that you know how to move forward. You don't want to do everything at once. One of the things that some of my competitors like to do is they go in and say, you have to do 50 things, now you're going to be secure. The problem is you'll feel overwhelmed, you won't be able to do it, and you'll panic. We're going to take you slowly through this. We're going to make sure we're doing it so that you're comfortable with how you move to that next step, what you want to do, and that you're going to get you there. It might take a little more time, but you'll be more successful in doing that. And then we'll be here to help you do the implementation. You know, we can look at monitoring, we can look at antivirus, we can look at backups, we can look at email security, email implementation. We can work on all of those things as we move you forward. Okay, so this is our contact information. You can reach us at info@ontechpartners.com, or you can go to our contact page. Whoop. We have a chat. My computer is running slow. Why did it not bring up the chat?
This is a question from Marky. For DLP, would that be a reason to use the cloud, or is there a better way to back up your information?
So for data loss prevention, we have what we call a hybrid cloud solution. We use the cloud almost exclusively. We have no more servers in our company. So using the cloud is a very good way to get that dual redundant backup type of conversation. If you do have on-site servers, you want to have what's called a hybrid solution, because the cloud can be slow. It can be slow to recover from. It can be slow to back up to. So in those situations, and we have this at several of our nonprofits in our companies, it backs up locally, and then it transfers a copy to the cloud. So in that situation, if you do have a restore, like I told you that one company that got a ransomware, we had our backup solution on site. We were able to restore in 10 minutes. If we'd had to pull the same information down from the cloud, it would have taken several hours. So you want to look at how long can you afford to wait to restore, what is the restore situation, and what do you have to do. But you will want a cloud part of your backup. And you want to work with them to make sure that they are encrypting that information. Is it encrypted while they're storing it? Is it encrypted when they're transmitting it? So these are conversations that will work with you to make sure are in the right place, so that you can have that protection. So that if something does go wrong, if you lose your building and it all burns down, and that's the only place you have your backups, then you've got a major problem. Everything is lost. By using the cloud, you don't have to worry. When I was young, back 30 years ago, we had to physically take backups off-site. We'd take them to a secure location. None of that has to happen. You can use the cloud to do all of that. You have Carbonite, you have Datto, you have all these solutions available to you to put it together, but you have to have a coherent plan. So yes, the answer to your question is you can use the cloud to be that backup recovery solution. Any other questions? I take applause too.
Very well done. Marky says thank you.
No.
If anyone else has a question, feel free to unmute yourself or type a question in the chat box.